S.H.I.E.L.D had always stood as an invisible guardian monitoring threats, collecting intelligence and, on occasion, intervening in matters that threatened the world order. For decades, they were hailed as humanity's secret saviors, operating in the shadows to keep chaos at bay, but then everything changed. It started with a series of crises: intergalactic attacks, rogue Avengers, the global rise of superpowered individuals that no government alone could control. The public, once grateful for S.H.I.E.L.D's protection, grew anxious. Heroes were unpredictable, after all. Politicians called for accountability. S.H.I.E.L.D. patience with the world's instability wore thin. Nick Fury, the man who built S.H.I.E.L.D. into what it was gone. In his place, a new director stood. Maria Hill, strategic, unwavering, and coldly pragmatic. She led not with secrets, but with calculated dominance and a vision for S.H.I.E.L.D. as not just a shield, but a sword. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. began to change. They still monitored threats. But now every superhero in the registry was closely surveilled, powers, personal lives, and networks logged. Mapped out, and when necessary, manipulated. Surveillance tightened, dossiers filled with new profiles each week. It wasn't long before whispers began to spread in the underworld. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were cited, not just in response to crisis, but in the halls of national assemblies. At corporate summits, in places they'd never openly walked before. Leaders who defied them found their careers cut short, their secrets exposed in leaks that could never quite be traced. It was always enough to ensure that when S.H.I.E.L.D. gave direction, it was followed. The Avengers, once allies, found themselves at odds with S.H.I.E.L.D. Steve Rogers. Captain America was the first to notice. Meetings grew tense. Directives arrived with blackmail tucked between the lines. Missions came with trackers and failsafes embedded into their equipment. For a while it was all whispers and suspicion. But then came the helicarrier incident. On a cold March night, a fleet of S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarriers appeared above New York City. This was no show of deterrence. They broadcasted a message to every news channel, voice cold. Order will be maintained. Compliance is mandatory for the security of all. No foreign nation dared protest. In truth, they were all terrified. Within hours, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents had seized control of UN headquarters. The old alliances were shattered. Now, S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't just policing threats. They dictated laws, dissolved governments, and constructed new ones loyal to their vision. Tony Stark tried negotiation. But technological sabotage crippled his companies. His armor, once the most advanced in the world, became obsolete overnight as S.H.I.E.L.D. fielded drones he himself admitted he couldn't match. Black Widow, once the ultimate infiltrator, became the target of her former colleagues. Every safe house was compromised, every contact neutralized. She fled off the grid, never sleeping in the same place 2 nights in a row. Thor returned to Asgard, defeated not by battle, but by the realization that he could do nothing for a world that had handed itself over with scarcely a protest. In the shadows, there were pockets of resistance. Small groups. Spies, ex-Avengers, former allies. They spoke not in names but in code. They moved from city to city, always hunted by omnipresent surveillance. For every victory, S.H.I.E.L.D. closed 3 more doors. The world under S.H.I.E.L.D. became efficient, safer in some ways. Crime rates plummeted. Wars ceased overnight. But the cost was total compliance. Dissenters disappeared. Free will was replaced by the illusion of choice. News was only what S.H.I.E.L.D. permitted. Maria Hill, in her high tower, saw herself not as a tyrant, but as a guardian. "This is the world as it should be," she would say, watching surveillance feeds of city after city humming in lockstep order. The world's mightiest heroes found themselves facing a threat unlike any other. Not a monster, not an alien, not an invading army, but the very hand that once protected them. A system built to defend humanity, now its jailer. Small acts of rebellion continued. Messages smuggled out, identities hidden behind shadows, fighting not for glory but for the hope that one day, the world would remember choice. The war was no longer fought in the open, but in the cracks, those small places where S.H.I.E.L.D's vision couldn't quite reach. And so, as the years passed, the lines blurred. S.H.I.E.L.D. was the ultimate villain, a force so powerful it could not be fought head-on, only endured, only resisted in secret. This perhaps was the darkest timeline. A world safe, yes, but never free.